Hey everyone, welcome to Carysgarage, and on this episode, we're going to talk about the first problem we've now had with the Cadillac. And before we get started, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, like, bell, all those goodies, and there's a Patreon for the channel, information's down below. Just trying to get a little bit of money together, which actually, some of the Patreon money is going to help fix the Cadillac. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I need to move it from one side of the yard to the other because I need to move some cars around. And oh, by the way, I got another car. Different story, we'll get into that in the next video. But let's do a quick cold start of the diesel Cadillac and move it, and then we'll talk about what's going on with it. Just like we did in the first video when I showed the Cadillac, make sure nothing's on. Okay. It has a manual glow plug controller under the dash because 85 when you're only, yeah, whatever. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do 10 seconds. It's the first time I've started it in probably a couple of weeks because the problem that it now has is making it to where I cannot drive it at the moment. Well, long distances really. So let me warm it up and drive it across the yard. And before we start talking about it, let's just admire the 4.3 V6 diesel again. So one of the problems of owning obscure, bizarre cars and driving them regularly is that when something happens or a part breaks, it can be very difficult and very expensive and sometimes near impossible to find stuff. Engine-specific stuff for this car are very, very, very difficult to get. There's a few other things on it that are specific to the diesel that are difficult. Well, what happened to this one was something I was actually dreading, which was kind of one of the reasons why we agreed to not go out and drive it back from Texas, but let's take a look. So you really can't see it, but I noticed that this tank on the side started leaking. Not bad, but it was starting to leak. And of course, it's a diesel-specific unique radiator. Technically, a 4.1 radiator will fit, but the core isn't as thick. This one does have the transmission cooler and the engine cooler lines, whichever one is on which side. So that is one thing that's a bit of a problem with finding a radiator. And the V8 gas radiator is 3/4 of an inch thick core. This one is 1.5 inches. And when I do end up fixing the radiator, I need to really detail this engine compartment and figure out what to do about that elbow for the breather. There's a serpentine belt right there. It's just such a goofy setup. I love it. So of course, because the car is such a limited production car and fairly rare, parts for this setup, what I'm looking for, don't exist. You cannot buy a radiator for this car. I can, like I said, get the 4.1 liter, but the core is not as big, and I worry about cooling efficiency. Over the winter, it probably won't be a problem, but over the summer. But recently, somebody I know in the diesel interesting car world sent me a link to a aluminum radiator that is a direct bolt-in that is actually a 2-inch thick core. So it's about 1/2 inch thicker, so it'll cool a little bit better. That has the engine cooler and the transmission cooler, and it's made for the C-body front-wheel drive cars. It's kind of a heavier duty radiator. Because I was getting into the mindset of, oh, I'm going to have to get a custom radiator made for it, which is going to cost a lot of money, which is why I've been sitting on it and not being able to drive it. But from what I can tell, we'll see, fingers crossed, this other radiator should work, and it's only $280 some, so it's fairly affordable. And thanks to everyone on here, I've raised enough money on Patreon to actually buy the radiator. So hopefully if all works well, at the beginning of next week, I'm going to order a radiator for this car to be able to get it fixed and back on the road, because I do adore and love driving this Cadillac, and it gets such good fuel mileage. Anyways, next video, we're going to talk about my new car, which was not supposed to happen, but the deal was too good to be true, and I think everyone's going to really enjoy it. It's a really, really cool car. But here's a quick little update on one of the projects, the Cadillac Sedan Deville diesel. Hopefully we can get it fixed and back on the road, and yeah. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Oh, before I forget, I'm actually getting some really cool upgraded wheels and a couple of parts for the DeVille from a friend of mine, so we're going to be working on that soon once I get the radiator in. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the next video.